For over a year, international headlines have been dominated by the bombardment of Gaza by Israeli forces, which has killed tens of thousands of Palestinians. The military action was a response to the Hamas attack on Israel on the 7th of October 2023, which resulted in the death of over 1,000 Israelis. After so much killing and devastation, it's hard to imagine Israelis and Palestinians living side by side in peace. Yet that remains the aim of a remarkable grassroots organisation called Combatants for Peace, which has been nominated for 2 Nobel Peace Prizes over the years. As the name suggests, it's made up of Israelis and Palestinians who decided that violence was not going to lead to a solution to their grievances. Several of the members were invited to UN headquarters by the UN Office of Rule and Law and Security Institutions at the end of January 2025, and I'm pleased to welcome 2 of those combatants to the UN studios. Thank you very much for being here. I'll start with you, May. This is Mai Shaheen, a Palestinian peace activist and therapist with over 12 years of experience on conflict resolution, and Alik El-Hanan, who once served in a special forces unit in the Israeli Defense Forces in the 1990s, and then after that you began to refuse to take part in military action in the early 2000s. Now, obviously here at UN News, we've been following what's happening in Gaza every day. The impression one gets, if you're following this through the media, is that there is such a gulf between the two sides, between the Israeli and the Palestinian populations, that no dialogue is possible. And it feels a bit extraordinary, maybe it shouldn't, to see you both here sitting side by side. For you, is this extraordinary, or does it feel unnatural to be talking to each other in this relaxed environment without any conflict?
Well, I don't know if there is no conflict, because there is no way to create an absence of one, but we are together even though there might be disagreements, there might be conflicts. This is actually our partnership in solving and ending the occupation. So to me now, after many, many years, it is very usual and normal to be sitting with another human being who happens to also be an Israeli Jewish. So, yeah.
And for you, Eric?
Combatants for Peace have been around for a while. October 7th and the subsequent violence and crimes against humanity in Gaza tested our mettle, but it wasn't our first test of the sort. We've been doing this since 2005, trying to find a way to communicate and dialogue. As May said, there is no absence of conflict, but we try to live with it and around it. And I have to say, over the years, in the last 20 years, this is my community. These are my brothers and sisters. These are my peers. These are the people I go to when I need advice. These are the people I go to when I need support. I trust May and I trust the other Palestinian members without a doubt, in a certain sense. Even though we have this horizon, the immediate result of our work is, not less pain, but more pain, because now we're grieving for 2 communities and fighting for 2 communities. And as a result of our long engagement together, this feels the most natural.
As you say, this engagement's been going on for a long time, but over the last 15, 16 months in particular, what have the conversations been like between the different communities within Combatants for Peace?
For us, it was very, very clear on the 7th, starting even on the 7th of October, that now more than ever we have to meet. It is normal to meet when everything is peaceful, or when for the Israelis, when it was done on us Palestinians, like many wars happened in Gaza, many things happened in the West Bank, and still, as combatants in peace, as Palestinians, we woke up every day and we went to meet with our Israelis, as he said, brothers and sisters, and also partners into bringing a change. And it did all the work of the organization of so many years of building came actually to prove itself on the 7th of October when we communicated with each other. We started writing by messages. You will see also in the film there is another way of how it went through with Jamil and Khen, two of the main holders of the Combatants for Peace. And a few days later, we met and we started talking on how can we actually bring everything we have learned and everything we have worked for all through these years now, while this is happening, while it's the 7th of October that followed a genocide immediately. And how do we actually walk our talk now in front of the Israeli and Palestinian community? So a lot of conversations, a lot of meeting, a lot of grieving, a lot of crying, a lot of conversations, dialogue, nonviolent dialogue has been one of the most crucial strategies that we have been using in Combatants for Peace, which allows us all the time to not only talk about politics, but to actually connect deeply with each other and to allow the pain and the grieving to come. We have, as Palestinians, we hold the space for the Israeli activists that were going from one funeral to another funeral, that lost a lot of their friends and the friends of their children that were at the Nova and other festivals there. And they needed to come with their frustration and anger and pain and grief. And we understood now this is the time to also hold these conversations and be in that grief in order to be able to continue working and creating a much bigger actually effect within the movement. And to also show our communities that nonviolent resistance is actually the only way for both of us to live on equal and just one land for everybody. Yeah.
I don't have much to add to what May said. I was here during the events of October 7th, and as I said, during those days, I was terrified for both communities. My family comes from the kibbutzim in the south. I know people in Gaza. Many of our members have families and friends in Gaza, going through the fear of October 7th and the anticipation to the Israeli reprisals that we knew would be insane and disproportionate and criminal. Was terrible, and I can say that in this time I was holding on to one hope, and this is that Combatants for Peace will survive this, that the conversation will begin. As I said, this is not our first event like that. It's the worst, but it's not the first. And there were many moments where we thought that the organization will not survive this level of atrocities. And each time it was the ability of members from usually the Palestinian side to stretch a hand and give us a place to be with them and to feel human, that saved the movement. And it happened again in October 7th, and in a certain sense, in this darkest of moments, a sliver of hope remains. As I said, I was not part of this particular conversation on the ground, but I followed it with bated breath, and I'm so grateful that we survived this moment and that we are still here and giving some sort of a horizon. I will add again on a personal note, I lost my sister in 1997 to a Hamas suicide bombing. I am familiar with this side of the conflict, as I am familiar with being the aggressor of this conflict. A place of forgiveness for my actions and a place for my grief was never found for me in the Israeli society. However, my Palestinian friends in Combatants for Peace were able to give me this space, and the fear of losing it was the worst fear I've ever experienced, and the joy that it's still around is definitely what gives me hope in the everyday.
Can you remember when you decided that violence was not the answer? As I said, you used to be part of the Israeli Special Forces. Violence was a part of what you were doing. For both of you, and May as well, you were involved in the first Intifada. What was that? The second Intifada, excuse me. Can you remember what changed? Was there a specific moment that changed?
Yeah, I mean, not a series of moments. It takes time. Political transformation takes time and takes a great deal of patience. There's a lot of pangs along the way. But, I mean, the first moment was, after the murder of my sister, when, I mean, in the midst of all the rage and pain, and my members from the army, from my unit, my commanding officer visited me, and they didn't have anything to say, any vision, except more death, more killing. And I remember very clearly officers from my unit telling me, you're home now, they need you, but get over it quickly, come back to the unit, you'll feel like a whole person again. We're going out to Lebanon, you'll get even. Now, like the people who killed my sister are Palestinians from the area of Nablus. How does fighting Hezbollah in Lebanon is going to alleviate my pain or in a certain sense redeem the death of my sister? What is the connection? And this vision of a world completely dominated by senseless violence, transactional violence, depressed me more than I can explain. Now, I was in this kind of violent and angry sort of depression for many, many, many years, until during the Second Intifada, as a young student in Paris, I met Palestinian students, and we started working together. We started protesting the violence together. We started insisting that the way of dialogue and negotiation of peace based on equality and justice is not dead. And it's in this moment that something opened up in me. And from that, later with Combatants for Peace, with other forms of Israeli-Palestinian resistance and solidarity actions, this change received really a form and became a vision and a horizon. But yeah, it took a long time.
So an important part of that, as you say, was be able to come face to face with Palestinian students, to see each other as human beings.
The most important part by far, yeah.
And I know that, May, you've said much the same thing from your side.
Yeah, definitely. For me, it was the same. I was fortunate to first meet a community of Palestinians and Israelis 13 years ago who had the vision and the dream that said, let's come and live together. And it was my first time actually meeting with normal Israelis who are not military, who are not investigating me, who are not terrorizing me, who are not stopping me on checkpoints. And I was there translating nonviolent communication training, and the co-founder of Combatants for Peace, Suleiman Al-Khatib, was there sharing his story. And through sharing his story, he started also sharing how it was for him in jail, and how he came to understand that nonviolent resistance is actually the means, is actually what will bring real liberation and freedom to us Palestinians, together also with Jewish in one land. And through his story, I started reflecting my own story, that wow, my intentions, even when I chose the violent resistance, was not to kill. I just wanted to be free. I never wanted to harm anybody. I didn't want to. But seeing the enormous violence of the Israeli occupation, of course, I thought that the only way to actually meet such forces of power and weapon is me being also in the same, reflecting the same violence on them. And listening to Suli and being part of that community that brought so much dialogue made me understand that, wow, I want to now take my back resistance into this nonviolent resistance, because it is very true that we were never against Jewish as Palestinians. We have never had anything against the Jewish people or the Jewish nation. We are against occupation, we are against oppression, we are against the separation wall and its checkpoints. And in the combatants, these are exactly our Israeli partners. They are the ones who are saying the same. They are refusing the occupation, they are refusing the oppression, they are refusing what is being done on the Palestinians, whether in Gaza or now in the West Bank. They are speaking up, they are standing up, they are being seen to my Palestinian community. Not only in the talk, but on the ground of actually bringing nonviolent resistance in a joint work and partnership with the communities, with the local communities, like in the Jordan valleys, like in Lithuania, like in Masafer Yatta. There is always joint work all the time. So the Palestinian community gets to actually meet us, gets to actually see that Elik and what he is doing, and Chen and Avner and Iris. Iris, for example, is in Pharisee all the time, standing all the time in between the settlers' violence and the Palestinian community there. Another activist, Eli, he's in the Jordan valleys. So people get to actually see the Combatants for Peace in an action, nonviolent resistance movement within partnership, which also gives us more legitimacy to bring ourselves
And is the political class listening to you at all?
Is who?
The political class in Israel and Palestine. Are they hearing your message? Are they listening to what you're saying?
We actually had a big solidarity camp last August, and we were joined by members from the Knesset like Afar Kasif, Maryam Touma, and other people. And we are not yet, the hope is to have more people within politics, change makers with us. This is the vision for our movement to actually be in bigger partnerships with the places like here, like with the UN, and the bigger political change making in our land, and bringing this vision, both people, one land, on a real just political agreement. So, yeah.
I completely agree with what May said. I should point out that the politicians that support us in the Israeli system are from the very far left of the political map, nearly off the political map. These are the Jewish and Palestinian members of the Communist Party and the coalition around it. Unfortunately, in the mainstream Israeli political system, we have a lot of silent support, but few of them have the courage to support us openly and vocally.
Why do you think that is?
I think a very deep misunderstanding of how politics works, but I think they judge the Israeli state of mind and temperament and think that what it needs is more unity, more strength, more togetherness. I think they're wrong. I think what we need is a principled opposition, and we can see that in the popular reaction to our work. Both in Israel and in Palestine. And this is my hope that politicians, both in Israel and around the world, will follow, will see that we have this great growth potential and will follow. But for the time being, only a small minority is there openly.
Now, of course, for decades now, the idea of a two-state solution, an Israeli state and a Palestinian state side by side, that's been one of the cornerstones of the United Nations. In the current climate, do you think this is still possible? Can it still happen?
For me, it's a one-state solution. I cannot think of how two-state or maybe two governments, but one land solution is the real solution that needs to come.
So what would that look like? Sorry, describe that a bit for me.
Everybody living freely on one land, and like it happens here in America, or it happens in Europe as well, There are Christian, Jewish, Muslims, Buddhist, non-believers, and they are all managing to live together freely, respectfully, and each of them has their own governmental means to go to and religious places to go to. So for us, it's like we want exactly the same. We are not asking for something that is out of the box, or that is we are as a human as the rest of the world is. We can be together. We are here to actually say, as a movement, as Palestinians and as Jewish Israelis, that we want to live together. Our fight is against oppression system. It's against the occupation. It's against the separation and the checkpoints and everything that is now happening. But it is not against Jewish people. It's not against living together. In the contrary, it is living together. And to me personally, my father is from the West Bank. My mom is from East Jerusalem. The separation wall is separating my own family. My daughter has the Israeli citizenship. I have the Palestinian citizenship. We are still separated by what is happening now.
When we started Combatants for Peace, the position, this was also the PLO's position, and the position of many of the Israeli members was a very staunch two-state solution according to the UN resolutions, etc. But I have to say, this was 20 years ago, and the US resolutions were nearly 50 years ago. And reality changes and perspective changes. And one of the missions that we didn't set to ourselves, but we realized that we were doing in Combatants for Peace, was building a joint political language for Israelis and Palestinians to function together in a single political system. And I have to say, this experience changed me. I don't know if the two-state solution is still possible. I don't know if it's desirable. I like sharing my political landscape with Palestinians, with their experience and their intelligence and their particular understanding of history and politics. However, and this was a key point in Combatants from Peace since the beginning, we don't presume to be a shadow government or something like that. We don't have a position paper on what should be the result. There are people who, this is their job, I think they're in this building. There are people that this is their expertise. Any problem can have a solution. We are here to say that the way to get there is through negotiation, is through agreed upon peace process, and not through violence and war and ethnic cleansing and genocide. And whichever solution will be agreed upon and will be voted upon and will be accepted by the majority of the populations, we're fine with. Our personal preferences, we're in dialogue and they change, they grow. And there were one thing 20 years ago. Today, there's a very idea getting currency of one land, two states. I don't know what has the political acumen to materialize right now, but I think we need to try, we need to push, anything is better than what's going on now. The lack of hope that we see now.
May Elik, thank you so much for being with us today. It's an absolute privilege to have you with us at UN headquarters. Of course, we are carrying daily news of what's happening in Gaza, the West Bank, the occupied Palestinian territories and beyond on UN News. That's news.un.org.